Welcome back to the Willow Branch podcast. My name is Junia. I am one of the hosts here. And this is
Mary. Hello, everyone.
Hi, my name is Ashley.
Hi, I'm Emily.
And this is the board of It Is Well Spiritual Center coming together. And these podcasts are going to be a little bit different every single time we do them. We might have all of us. We may have a couple of us. We might have a guest. Who knows in the future.
Awesome.
But today we wanted to talk about the subject of community minus religion. And I think it's hilarious because we're quite passionate about this topic apparently, because right before we even began, we were already talking about it. But I kind of want to propose the question to everybody, what does community without religion look like to you guys?
It looks like us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can honestly say It Is Well is the first place that I've really felt like unconditional love, no judgment, literally a place that I can put anything and everything that I want to out on the floor. And whether it's just the four of us or our spiritual groups that we do once a month, it's probably the first place I've ever felt as safe as I do. Even with as close as I've been to certain family members or people in my life, what I have in our friendship and what I get from our groups with it as well, I don't know, it's just it's uncomparable to anything else. Just really having that foundation and that security and knowing that all of us, that when we come together, we all know that we're all looking for the same thing: a safe space, comfort, yes. Empathy, compassion,
acceptance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some form of understanding. I might not know what it's like to be in your shoes, but you can sit back and listen to me and sit with me, and we can be okay together in that.
I love that so much. It's about presence. It's about being present for someone else.
Exactly.
You
didn't necessarily have to live their life, but being willing to lovingly sit with them and hold their hand or just listen. Just be present. I mean, that right there is an act of unconditional love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So community minus religion. Ash, any concepts of what community is outside of that?
Unconditional love has been my main thing. It's this group. You girls have changed my life.
You guys have changed mine too. I don't think I say that enough to you guys, but it's true.
I think that you guys have helped me almost grow into who I am and still growing into. Because before I met you, I was sort of just surviving and not really. I was mad at the world.
I love that. I love it. We all have different backgrounds and stories that we come from, but the fact that we're able to come together and find that unconditional love, I think it speaks volumes. Yeah. And for me, that's the one thing where it's I want to share more of that in the world. Mm-hmm. And creating spaces like that I think are very important, because I feel like there's a lot of people who are very afraid yes. of community because of what community has looked like in the past, what it looks like now in our society. And, there's a lot of uncertainty there. Or there's a lot of conditions that are placed on people that they have to fit into a specific box and be a specific way in order to be a part of that community or be accepted.
It makes me sad, the world that we live in this day is, I'm all for having your own thoughts and opinions, and I hope that you do. You don't grow if you don't have these things, but to push people onto them, I think that that's where our world is dividing. It's because it's not about just you, it's about community, and people have definitely veered away from that.
I think anybody who has a religious background, who's been raised in a religious background, if you look at community minus religion, that is a negative thing for them, or so they've been taught. Because the majority of the time when we have looked at community, it has always had a religious affiliation. And you can look at community groups down the line, and there's always, at the core of it, there's always a religious affiliation. So taking that aspect out of it and saying it is possible for us to come together as a loving community and not agree on the same religious precepts,
Right.
and still love and accept one another, and still commune with one another, which is one of the root words from community. I mean, it's possible for us to love one another, come together, do things together, grow together, learn from one another. I don't want everybody else to be like me. If I'm a Catholic and I only allow people who are Catholics in my group, in my community group, how am I going to learn and grow?
Right.
I welcome the variety, the differences. I want to learn from you. I want to learn from your background, what you've been through, what you've learned, how you've grown, you know, and that helps me to learn and grow as well.
Heck yeah, it does.
I think people have forgot that, what do they call that? Love thy neighbor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love thy
and
neighbor as thyself.
People are so angry and in a rush, and
Yes.
yeah.
I think people don't realize how much of it is internal too. I don't think people realize. It's one thing that kind of hit me in the last couple months is taking a step back. And I heard something, I can't remember who it was that said it, but it was on TikTok, and basically this person was just like, every time you get irritated with something, take a minute and a half or two and sit back and ask yourself, are you angry at that person for doing that because it does not meet your standards and you're doing that and not meeting your own? That's why you take it out on them. And it was the silliest little stupid things, but I started noticing, like, every time I would get angry with Kurt at something, or Jonathan, or I would get angry in the car because of how the person in front of me was driving, or anything like that, I would sit back and, lo and behold, majority of the time, and it was in ways that I would never even thought, like, I'm angry about that. Or, like, if you would have just asked me, like, do you do this? Is that why you're mad at that person? Right off the top of my head, I would have said no. But when I dove deeper into it, I sat back and started realizing things that were like, no, I'm really angry at myself. Or if it's not even a big thing, like, I'm just genuinely annoyed that this person does that. But when I sit back and think about it, I do it too. And I don't think that, I feel like especially it gets worse when people come together in groups, religious or not, but when a bunch of people come together in a group and they all have negative thoughts, or they're all angry and not willing to face themselves, then that just creates an even bigger problem, because now you have a bunch of people rallying with all this negativity. And it's hard to look past or beyond trying to grow yourself or change when that's your constant like flow or vibe around you, or that's what you're constantly surrounding yourself with.
So there's this thing I was going to bring up a little bit later, but there's this thing called the cycle of liberation, and it is created by someone who is named Bobby Harrow. I believe she is a doctor, actually, but she got her doctorate in like education or something like that. But Bobby Harrow, she created the cycle of liberation, and a part of the cycle is just that. It's recognizing yourself. It's seeing, you know, the parts of yourself that are causing yourself to stay stuck in the cycle. And once you're able to see that, then you find other people who are also trying to heal through, you know, whatever it is they're healing from. And then as a community is where you actually start to liberate yourself.
You mean like-minded people come together?
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny, I feel like since I've started this journey, I didn't really see people that were healing before, and now I see it all over the place. It's not enough, but it's happening.
It is happening, and it starts here. It starts with the individual person.
Right.
But then we have to have courage enough to be able to find others who are doing the same thing. And the more people we find and we realize like that we're not on this journey by ourselves, the stronger we become.
Yes.
That's why we're here. You know, as part of it as well, is because we want to be that, hey, we're over here, a group of people who are trying to heal with us.
Exactly.
And let's create change while we do it.
we were talking about like diversity and culture and all that. I love that on one hand I can come in and feel safe and I can come in and have a group of people to talk to, but I also love the fact that we do have so many different people from so many different walks of life, religions, cultures, background, like just, and we just keep finding and pulling more and more people in, and it's just so cool to all sit around and be able to talk about those things, see other people's point of views, become educated about what's normal, isn't normal, what we thought was normal and apparently wasn't.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
So I wanted to bring up that cycle of liberation because I feel like it was something I just was learning about in school, actually, for the humanities course that I was taking. So I just felt like it was a very profound cycle to talk about, and maybe we'll even do a podcast on that later, just solely that, because there's so much there. But we have some reasons why people are afraid to be a part of community, and I wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit, like religious trauma, for instance.
Oh boy, that's a rabbit hole in and of itself.
Right. But I mean, it's a big reason why I feel like we, try to open the door of community, just as an example, through it as well. And we are faced with people who are like, yeah, I'm not sure, or they'll like come for a second and then they're like, no, it's too much like church, or
it's not enough like church.
Or it's not enough like church. Yeah, exactly. So, what do we think are other reasons, or if you want to expound upon religious trauma itself, what are other reasons that we might be experiencing fear for community, for connection?
Themselves, whatever traumas they have, they don't want to face.
Yeah.
I think that holds a lot of people back. It's not fun to heal.
I agree, because you don't always recognize it as that. You might see it as, okay, this is another group getting together in the community. I don't trust them because I don't know them. What are they really about? What's the underlying religion? What's the underlying belief? What's the underlying, thing that needs to come to light before I trust them and open myself up to them?
Just be open-minded.
Yeah, exactly.
I think people are always waiting for the other shoe to drop too.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
what's the motivation here? What?
So I've never felt that. Even like meeting all the people at the monthly meetings, because they're not all the same people every month
Right.
that we have it. I
Right.
feel like I've never walked in and been like, oh, I don't know about this person. I don't know this. Like, I've never. It's always just been like, welcome, hi.
Yeah, as it should be,
Yeah.
honestly. Which, I mean, anywhere you have people, you're going to have people who butt heads or who struggle to communicate with one another or connect. But I think it goes back to what you said a minute ago, which is we see ourselves in other people. And sometimes it's really hard to face yourself. It's really hard to face your fear. It's hard to face what, the darkness that you have that you're working on in somebody else,
We
so
all have that.
we do.
all have that, whether or not we want to call it that. We all deal with that on a regular basis, and just recognizing that it's going to be highlighted from time to time. Especially, like you said, if we take a moment to take a step back and say, okay, why did that irritate me? Or why did that offend me? Why did that kind of spark a negative reaction within me? What was it that was the core issue behind that? But I think those things come into play when you're carrying any kind of trauma with you through your life and you're trying to heal and walk through something. So not only just religious trauma, but it can be any kind of trauma.
Relationship trauma.
Oh, yeah.
I think about, I've not always had the best relationship with my husband's side of the family. Like, we've really kind of struggled and butt heads and stuff. But after my sister passed, it was like it opened up this new door for a reconnection, I guess, which is beautiful. But I'm still like tentative about it, and not in a way where I'm like completely opposed to being around them, but more so in a way where it's like, we're just gonna take baby steps here. I'm not gonna rush anything. So I saw them over the weekend, the whole family, which was just like, it's been years since we've all been together in the same room. And it was beautiful because I was watching everybody kind of like connect, and you know how you do sometimes in certain situations where you have that eagle's eye perspective, and you're just observing. And that's what I was doing, and it was a beautiful moment of just a lot of love being poured out between people. And I recognized that I was so vastly different than I was a couple of years ago when we were, connected back then. And I recognized that I can't control what happens in this situation. I can't control how they respond, whether it's loving or not, or whether we have love in this moment and then we have, opposition the next, whatever the case may be. But I realized that I didn't have as much emotional attachment to the outcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of our issue sometimes when we are stepping into a place where we can connect with others. We have like emotional attachment to what happens between the two of us. What happens between us and this group? Are we going to get hurt?
Right.
And there's that fear of what could be, of what could happen. But once we actually like take that eagle's eye perspective and observe the situation and recognize like we don't have to be attached to that outcome. We can appreciate what we have moment by moment, and we can even appreciate the opposition and recognizing that that's teaching us something very important. And maybe it's a resilience thing. Maybe it's a personal growth thing where you're looking at yourself and being like, I need to overcome something within myself.
Just recognizing to meet people where they are, and maybe there's somebody on the opposite side that's willing to meet you where you are, because we're all going through a healing process. We're all on a journey, on our own path. So it doesn't mean that I've already arrived. If I'm part of a spiritual support group or part of it as well, or part of this podcast or whatever, it doesn't mean that I've arrived and I'm at the apex, I'm here, everybody else must meet me where I am. No, that doesn't mean that at all. It means there's somebody there that needs to turn around and be willing to say, hey, I'll meet you where you are as well. And I think that's a part of the unconditional love and acceptance in a community group such as this. I have been thinking about this a lot, and I think about it when I listen to you ladies sharing and talking and everything. There's nothing else out there that we know of in our community like this. There are so many people that may even be currently a part of other communities, religious communities and others, and they're just looking for something to connect with. They're looking for some place to feel safe, accepted, loved, unconditionally, just as you are. No matter what clothes you wear, no matter what jewelry you wear, no matter what your makeup looks like, no matter what your hair looks like, no matter what job you have, no matter what color your skin is, none of that matters. To be loved and accepted just as you are. How many groups are out there right now like that?
I mean, and I'm sure there are some, but it's few and far between.
Exactly.
And there are a lot of expectations that other groups have, a lot of rules and regulations of like how you have to show up.
I think a lot of fear for people moving from those types of groups into a group or a situation like ours too is you don't really hear about it. I'm sure there are others out there,
Right.
but I mean,
Right.
we're 15, 20 minutes from Columbus, which is a decent sized metropolitan area. I've never heard of anything else like this. The closest thing that I've witnessed or seen to it recently would be this girl that pops on TikTok live, and she just sits there, and at the bottom it says something about, I'm here, you're not alone. Say whatever you need to say, like I'm holding space for
It's
you.
just like that guy from Blue's Clues.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Steve.
Have you seen his?
I love that human.
He is on, I think, TikTok, and he will be on live, and he's like, how are you doing today? And he'll sit there as whatever he's doing, and people are typing away like their heart, and he is just acting like he's like taking it all in and listening to you and there for you. And there's so many people just pouring their hearts out.
Oh my That's awesome.
It is amazing.
I think with the rejection and shame side of things, is like, I can't tell you how many people are like in the closet spiritual people that I've noticed over the years.
That's
Like, they're
hilarious.
so interested in, and it could be different things. It could be just the aspect of like our group and what we do and having a place and space to talk to people. It could be being interested in different cultures, backgrounds, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say different activities, the word's not coming to me, but you know, things like tarot or
Like rituals.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And they're terrified to say anything, especially I see it most with men or even people just in general that grow up further away from metropolitan areas or have like come from a family or background that like particularly the dad had a very like stringent idea of what the home looked like, what men and women are supposed to do, and those kinds of things. And I think so much of it is they want those things, they yearn for those things, to reach out, find a group, find a community, really invest themselves in what they want in life, but they're afraid of what they're going to be judged or how they're going to be looked at by those people that have been so close to them their whole lives. And it's like, it's a hard thought to even just think about one or a few of the closest people to you being like, why do you do that? Or just not understanding and judging you for something. But I think once you get past that point is where you really start to break open who you are and finding happiness in yourself.
But you have to break the cycle.
Yeah.
You have to break the cycle, and you have to have the courage to do that. And whether that cycle breaking point is stepping out of your comfort zone and coming to a meeting like, you know, that you feel called to go to, you know, or like actually going to go hang out with that friend that you've said 20 billion times, like, we should get together. Hey, it's been a while since I've seen you. We should get together, you know those people. I've been that person. You know, but actually like investing in that, you know, experience and letting yourself break yourself from the cycle of, you know, the same old, or trying to fit into these patterns that other people have created for you.
Right.
Sometimes it's just the smallest step.
Mm-hmm.
And that, what you don't realize is on the other side of that small step that you take, you have support, and you find support that helps you continue to take the steps.
Yeah.
Which that's what this is about. Even with the cycle of liberation, they talk about, Bobby Harrow mentions how important it is that you actually continue the steps. It's never something that you're done with. You have to maintain it. And in order to do that, you continue to take the steps toward liberation of whatever it is, whatever you're being oppressed by. So, you know, for us here, it's our personal mindsets, you know, so.
Yeah, our mindset is going to be the one thing that imprisons us the most if we allow it, you know?
Yeah,
so sometimes taking that first step that you just talked about a minute ago can be very scary. But once you break free of that there's freedom. There's freedom in that move.
I think that maybe that's part of, you know, the resistance that sometimes, you know, I feel as a leader with it as well and stuff is, you know, I feel people kind of like uncertain, both words.
We'll accept both of those.
I feel people's hesitancy to participate in things. And I feel like part of it is because, you know, what is it that you just said right before that? Help me out here, because my brain just farted.
Are you talking about breaking free and having the freedom once you make that step that is a difficult step to make for you, that the mindset can be the one thing that imprisons you the most?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we realize all the time that it's just taking that step to do that thing that you're afraid to do, you know, however small that may be, you know, that actually pushes you in the direction that you need to go in. There was something else there, but I'll get
Forward motion, whether it's a leap or whether it's a baby step, that's the direction we need to go in. That's the direction we all need to go in. So
Gotta break through that uncomfortability.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
It's so beautiful on the other side.
It sure is.
And that's what
right.
it was. That's what it was. Thank you. I feel like part of the hesitancy here is that sometimes just being present as it as well creates uncomfortability for people. It creates this energy of like, yeah, you're going to be uncomfortable for a moment because you got to step through some kind of a threshold here. Yeah. You know, whether that's, oh, I'm gonna actually come, or oh, I'm actually going to talk, or like whatever that may be.
See, I've always felt comfortable.
Well, good. That's because
Always.
you knew me. I
I've
feel like we're comfortable together.
Yes,
you know?
very much so. Very much so.
I've always felt comfortable in the very beginning, before all four of us started getting really tight. Had nothing to do with you guys or even it as well, but there were moments where it was like things were going on in my life and I'd be like, man, do I really want to go to this meeting? And it wasn't because I was afraid anybody was going to judge me. It was literally me just being uncomfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
And being around everybody was such a good, positive experience every time that when I was in those negative or like really down moments, I just didn't want to put myself in all that happiness because then I'd have to turn around and leave it, and I don't know how to explain it. It was like the most uncomfortable feeling to be uncomfortable and down in myself, and then the thought of being around a good support system because I never had that beforehand. I guess in a sense that could be PTSD.
No,
That was a
I
trigger.
Because I feel like there's been many times where I'm like, oh, I don't want to go. But they probably feel my energy and they're probably like, ugh, I'm gonna get sick right now.
No.
Never.
But I mean,
Never.
that's
It's
been
the
the
mindset.
case. Is I've always ended up coming and everything's been fine. So
And it's that thought process that I feel like people get stuck in, is like that whole, I'm expected to be a certain way in order to be in this space.
There it is.
You know?
There it is. And what you said just now, what you both said just now reminded me of some of the trauma that I went through when I was in church.
Yeah.
If you missed a church service and then you went back, there was so much guilt poured on you for not having perfect attendance.
Yep.
And especially if you did like the choir, praise and worship team, ushered, baby sat in the nursery, anything like that was like a position of some sorts within the church. If you missed church, you were chastised for being tardy, or it's like they were keeping a track record of your absenteeism. And that just reminded me of the trauma that I went through, because we would miss like a Sunday and then I'd be scared of going back, and maybe I would miss another Sunday because I didn't want to face that.
Yeah.
And it was just that whole energy of feeling so guilty of not showing up, but it was within me more so, that I accepted that trauma that I was going through. It was crazy that I went through that for years and years and years. And we would just, we would avoid it sometimes just because we didn't want to face being chastised for missing church.
That's just crazy too.
Yeah, it just reminded me of that when you brought that up.
Mine was never, because me and my grandmother were not in any of those kinds of positions in church, but I felt that way because I could tell she felt that way. Like if I didn't go with her, then she would be looked at as a bad person because where am I at? And then it would make her feel some kind of way because she knew she was getting judged that I wasn't there with her, and everybody knew I lived with her because when I would go, which is another crazy thing because the closest I ever felt to how I feel with all of us particularly had to do with my pastor growing up. When I was going to church as a kid, my pastor was super fun loving man. He had made some mistakes because he used to be a part of another church before my dad was even a thought. But he had really put in some work, done some things, yada yada, had another church years down the line that I went to growing up and all that. But I just remember with him, I did feel like he was a genuine person that I could go to with almost anything and everything I didn't, being a preteen teenager. But I feel like he genuinely held that space for people in a way that I hadn't really ever experienced before or since until all of us came together. And but then when I was about 18, that's one thing I've had to learn to heal from in the last couple years too, is like my own trauma from religion. And it specifically had to do with him and the congregation, because when I was like 18, I did not go to church consistently. At that point, I don't even think I had been probably in a year. but the entire congregation just like pushed him out. I don't remember all the logistics of it and all that, but the church that he had built and been the pastor of, it was his for over 40, 50 years.
Wow.
In his late 80s, early 90s, they were like, bye. And his own congregation completely kicked him out.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah, and I know it all had to do with money. How, to what extent, I don't remember. I was
That's
a
so
kid.
sad.
But yeah, it was really sad. And I remember after all that and how we were talking about feeling judged, I never felt that way by him. But everybody in that church, like you could just feel it when you were walking out on Sunday and everybody was saying bye and giving hugs and all that. There was like such pressure to just stand there with a smile on my face and make sure, you know, my dress or my skirt was pulled down far enough, making sure, you know, I accidentally rub up against a pew and like was showing too much skin or something. Just the silliest little things that nobody should ever really have to think about. Like, as we were standing up and walking through the line to say bye to everybody to go out was like some of the most immense pressure ever, because every anxious thought that you could think of was running through my head on Sundays. And then I would get up to him and I would say hi to him and his wife and I'd be fine. And then I'd walk out the door and I'd go home and do what a teenager does. But it was just the weirdest feeling, being around all of those people and feeling that way. And I remember feeling not to that extent, but close to that in like so many different groups, my friend groups at school, like, and it's weird and it's funny to think back too of being a kid or being a teenager. It's like I had so many different groups of friends that had so many different backgrounds and interests, and I genuinely kind of fit in and flowed with everybody.
Right.
But it's weird to think like when I was with these people I would feel this way, when I was with these people I would feel this way, and I felt like, not that I was being fake in any kind of way, but around these people I would show this side of myself who was genuinely who I was, but I was afraid to like talk about or act a certain way that I did with these people and so on. And it just, like, for instance, a silly explanation, like my friends that liked rap music versus my friends that liked rock, like I loved both.
Right.
But in high school everybody's so into their cliques and their things that it was like, if I told these friends, like I'll never forget, I was in the car with my best friend and my boyfriend at the time. I was probably like 15, and the radio came on and it was 99.7 The Blitz, and I was listening to like heavy metal, and both of them looked at me and was just like, what is this? Why are you listening to that? This is horrible. And I was like so excited for this song to come on. And I didn't shut it off. I made them listen to it. But I just remember after that being like, really? Like, you two are the people that I'm supposed to be closest to right now. Especially the girl that was my best friend since like first grade. And I'm like, I feel so about our friendship and how you're making me feel about myself over a song.
And you recognize that all of this was you, like underneath of it all, like seeing that you were somehow editing yourself into these little boxes and whatnot because you wanted to be palatable for these people.
Right.
But the truth is we're all multifaceted beings.
Yes.
You know, which is why you have so many people who are a part of different groups, and he'll be like, yeah, I'm a part of this group, but I feel like I don't belong anywhere.
Yeah.
Because just like Emily said a minute ago, she would show this part of her true self to this group, and then another part of her true self to another group. But did she have one group where she could show her whole authentic self?
I do
Yeah.
now.
There it is. We're a bunch of weirdos together, and I
And we're in
absolutely
different
love
ways.
it. And
Yeah.
we have.
I love that.
I love that we've opened up the doorway for like, you know, multiple ages and stuff like that to be present, and
Yes.
yeah. So there's still a need here for like-mindedness, and that's what you're seeking, like with your friends groups and stuff like that. And I feel like that's the hard part of our society right now, because we just talked about this a minute ago, but we are so divided.
Mm-hmm.
We're so divided in our society, especially like the government divides us, right?
Oh, God,
Not just into political parties,
The
but
churches divide
also,
us.
yeah, churches divide
Church
us.
and state. Everybody
Yeah.
divides us. Think about it.
Friends divide you.
Yeah.
Family
Yeah.
divide you.
Family
Yes.
divides you.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's constant division all around us, and I feel like the answer is unity, just in general. Like I feel like the division is the cause of a lot of our strife in the world.
Mhm.
A lot of the pain we feel as individuals too, because I bet you those friends that you're sitting in the car with and stuff that were like judging you because of the music choice that you like. I mean, I don't know if they like musical theater or what else they like, but I bet you anything that there's something else that they enjoy that they weren't sharing with you.
Oh,
Mhm.
gosh,
They were
yes.
just here to share.
They were also putting themselves in that box.
Oh, yeah.
I did the same thing when I was growing up. I had a lot of different friends groups,
Yeah.
a lot, and I was a little bit of myself in every one of them.
Yep.
It was like a part of myself that I just kind of like split
Yep.
into these different factions, and that's draining, especially over time. And I feel like that's why you get into your like 30s, 40s, and
Yeah.
50s, and you're just kind of like, screw it, I'm gonna be myself now.
Yes.
Because we recognize that the division is exhausting, and it's not sustainable in
No.
any means.
And it doesn't make you happy.
No.
At the end of the day, even if it is parts of your true self, if you're still trying to juggle and manage it versus who you're around, you're still trying to manage who you are instead of just being who you are.
Exactly.
And that takes a lot of work and effort and stress. I'm sorry, if you get in my car, we might listen to Snoop Dogg and then it might be Metallica afterwards. And at this point in my life, you're listening to both. If it's a problem, we can talk about it.
I always
But
joke around
we'll
in
not
my-
hide it.
I feel the same because in my car, my playlist is the most obscure playlist in the entire universe because I jump around time frames too.
Yes.
I'll have like current
Uh-huh.
music, but I'll have music from the 1950s as
Yes.
well. And then I'll have Broadway and opera and classical and like it's all over the place.
I know.
Rap. I know you know. I know you are quite familiar. And then I have like spiritual music that's just like the I have the weirdest taste, but all of it's me too. So and we need places where we can feel like we can be ourselves. And our workplace, like to our work family and stuff, we still have a face that we put on for that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in our real families, we have a face that we put on for that. You know, you shouldn't in your immediate family. Obviously, that should be your zone where you're just like in dropping everything.
Right.
But people still feel like they have to wear masks in those situations too.
Yes.
And maybe here, kind of speaking on the theme of liberation, maybe what we feel like is unattainable when it comes to community is a community that allows us to liberate ourselves from our mask.
Nice.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like the more I've stepped into this, it's honestly, like, it was the most terrifying thing, and stepping into it, I guess, was hard because I didn't even know what I was doing. But once I, took my few baby steps and kind of stumbled it, it's been the easiest thing that I've done. Just in the sense of the easiest to keep pushing myself forward with.
Yeah.
Once you get that little bit of taste of like, you're starting to open your eyes to the things that you do, the things that others do, the things that you allow to happen to you, and the things that you can take control of but you just haven't, and the difference in what taking control of or even letting go of certain things can do for you, you can't ignore it anymore. You can be staring it dead in the face and you can try to put on ignorance to deflect it or ignore it, but I feel like once you get so far into it, you can't ignore it no matter how much you try. And in a sense, it's a beautiful thing. I love it because it makes it easy for me to be like, okay, well, you know this is what this is, or you know this is what you need to do, or what you need to not do. And you can either sit here and choose to ignore it and things are going to stay like this, or you can do something about it.
the first step to any kind of process of change in the world or within ourselves is waking up to it.
Yeah.
You have to wake up first. You have to open your eyes to the issues that are present. And here's the thing. There is no community out there that is free from issue, free from
Truth.
drama,
That is the truth.
because where people are, there will be things like that.
As long as you're dealing with humans and human nature, you will always deal with the opportunity for growth.
What I like to think, though, and when I'm thinking about the future of it as well, just as an example here, I think back to a lot of my negative situations with community, with friendship, with relationship. And I like to believe that all of those things have taught me what not to do.
There it is. There it
You
is.
know?
And that's how I choose, for example, some of the topics that we've hit just in this podcast, talking about religious trauma and the background in church and things like that. I choose to look at it that way. I've learned a lot of what not to do when dealing with other people. Number one being learning unconditional love. Learning that is the first and foremost thing. I mean, when we say the word love, we think it's such a common, overused word, but when you just basically look at it and say, in its purest form, it's without condition.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing.
You had a beautiful point about God and love earlier.
Oh, yeah, because a lot of times people, are talking about, for example, if we're talking about the Christian background and whatever, and a lot of different religious affiliations, especially in the United States, they will, they may be Catholic, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, whatever, but they will all align with the fact, I'm a Christian. So they align with biblical teachings and things like that. So they talk about the true meaning behind God.
Yeah.
And the epiphany just came to me. I really feel like Spirit just gave it to me this morning, was that there were a couple of scriptures in the Bible. One of them is in 1 Corinthians, for people who are interested in looking things up. 1 Corinthians 13:4-8. Anybody who's ever read the Bible is very familiar with that section of the Bible. But it says, love is no respecter of persons. So if you look at the word love that we just talked about, being unconditional, and we know that to hold space within ourselves as a spiritual person, that's the most important thing for us to hold. But we also know that we bear spirit within us first, and we're just a spirit within a body that we have for a temporary time frame. Okay, well, the scripture also says God is love. So then, if one scripture says God is love and the other one says love is no respecter of persons, that means God, and however you align with God, the universe, God is no respecter of persons.
Yeah.
So that is the form of unconditional love that we should carry within us. That means me. I am no respecter of persons. That I love unconditionally.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind this morning. I was like, okay, put two and two together. It's like, amazing.
Well, what I love about that too is a big part of finding community without religion and all of that is understanding that there's so many people with different backgrounds and beliefs and all that jazz, and we can still, be unified underneath of something. We don't have to, be adhering to one belief system or another. And
Exactly.
But after you mentioned that to me, I looked up and I saw that there are multiple religions that actually believe that phrase, God is love. You know what I mean? Isn't it crazy when we have all of these different backgrounds and beliefs that believe the same basis, the same things?
Hinduism, Islam,
Judaism.
Judaism,
Yeah.
All of these, they all have that same common belief throughout. So all the hundreds of names and meanings that all over the world, all over the globe, that people attribute to that higher divine entity that they align with is love.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that if you would subtract the Bible, people would see that more.
Yeah.
Because
I
the
agree.
Bible, they hide behind the Bible, and the Bible wasn't even written by God.
No.
So
No, not at all. The Bible was written by man.
Well, that's a whole other podcast.
We could get into that.
That is a whole other podcast, because I shared a video with you guys, and that was
Yes.
just full of really good information, because you could go down the rabbit hole
Oh
and
my
say,
gosh.
you know, the name Jesus wasn't even invented until 1611, and it was in the Greek language. And oh, wait a minute, Yeshua didn't even speak Greek. He spoke Aramaic.
Well, and like you said, another podcast. I won't get too much into it.
I
but
know.
That's one of my
I'm just
biggest.
saying.
When I started down this journey, I still want to delve a lot more into learning more specifics about multiple different kinds of religions.
Yes.
That was one of the biggest things that I noticed is like, especially some of the most humble and peaceful religions, it's all based around love, and so many of them have the same or similar stories and or the same or similar beliefs, and it's crazy. Especially there's a lot that you can see where certain religions went off on their own churn to go from being about community and love to somebody took it and was like, let's use this to our advantage to control people or manipulate people. And I think if people really took back and took the time, you don't have to believe in anything or any one certain thing to educate yourself.
Right.
And I think if more people just educated themselves, they would realize how much of it is manipulation and control versus what was the original statement or point or foundation behind what all these different communities and religions and groups were originally made for.
Right.
And if we could get back to those basics, we'd be in a much better place.
Here, here.
that's why I really don't feel the need to dive in and learn about religion, because in my time it'll never be what it was meant to be. So I just know that God is with me and everybody else and the universe, and that's all I care about.
Yeah.
You can be religious and we can be friends, but it's just not my cup of tea. I would rather just be flowing in love.
Exactly.
Here, here. I love
That I think is the like-mindedness, and I was trying to pinpoint this earlier when I was writing out the layout for today. I was trying to pinpoint exactly what is the like-mindedness that unites us, you know, through it as well, in particular, and I want to emphasize that we're using it as well as an example here.
Right.
But it's important to understand that we create community under the umbrella of love,
Yes.
unconditional
Yes.
love. And whether that's with us or whether that's outside of us, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we find that connecting piece, and that we recognize that we are all connected just because we are.
Yeah.
Period. Like, there's nothing that you have to be, that you have to do, no rules that you have to follow. If you follow the art or the energy of unconditional love, then you are already falling into place.
Isn't that crazy? Because most of us strive our whole entire life to feel like we belong to something.
Mm-hmm.
We strive and strive and strive to feel connected. And if we just stopped and realized within us that we are already connected, it's already there.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is wake up to it.
Yep. We're
Yeah.
not here to impress.
Mm-mm.
We're just here to love.
That's
Exactly.
And that energy will pull into the whole universe.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if I would say anything as an invitation, it wouldn't be come with us because we know what we're talking about, or we've got it all figured
we're
out.
learning.
It's come join us and heal with us, grow
Yeah.
with us,
Yeah.
learn with us.
I think so many people don't realize at the end of the day, we don't all always want the same thing, but majority of us do. We just want to laugh and be happy and have a good time with people that we can feel safe and comfortable with and connect with. And it's just, when you pull everything back, there's so many different layers of things that can go into it. It's like, for instance, as an example, people focus so much on like demographics, whether it be race or religion or sexuality or whatever. But if somebody falls or trips and like doesn't get hurt, but their coffee goes everywhere and they start laughing, if it's your buddy, you might laugh about it. But if it's just a person at work, but you don't match their same demographic, and not everybody, but a lot of people, it already gives them that, like, I can't laugh at them, or I can't laugh with them. I can't associate or socialize with them because we are not the same. Why not? Why not? If you can laugh at it, why can't you laugh at the same jokes? Why can't you be interested in the same games or the same TV shows? Or, like, what is it that having a common interest with somebody, but because you don't have all the same common interest, makes people feel like they can't connect with someone?
Yeah.
Closed-minded people,
Mm-hmm.
they put themselves in a box.
Just
True.
One of my favorite quotes is from Johnny Cash, and it's literally, "Don't put me in a box." I have it hanging up on my wall in my dining room area in my house because it's just kind of like that little phrase that I just aligned with that affirmation for myself, where I don't want to be put in a box. I don't want to put other people in a box. I want to see you outside of the constructs that we create in humanity, because we are so much more.
Yes.
We are so much more than what we were told we were.
Yeah.
When I was, I don't know how much I can talk about it or what I can reference, so we'll just say I was somewhere with a group of people in the last week, and the person that was speaking, she was talking about how, I can't remember if it was 9 or 11, but like there was a huge need for health care in this community. And this was like back in the late 1800s. So even though they were all different forms of like Christian religions, to mix religions was like a huge deal then. Like Presbyterians won't do something with Lutherans, and so on and so on and so on. And these 9 to 11 churches all came together because they all needed healthcare to establish this healthcare system, because the whole community needed it. They didn't bat an eye. They didn't argue over who was right or wrong. Or they all just came together and raised money to start this healthcare. And to think that people did that over 100 years ago, it's like, what's stopping us from doing those things now? If everybody would just let down their guard. I don't know. I just like being a part of it as well, and being around all the people that we have been, doing my own research and opening my own mind to different things, reading all these things that 5, 6, 7 years ago I was not doing, has really changed my perspective of everything. Talking about unconditional love kind of reminds me of this TikTok, simple way to kind of explain it, that I saw the other day. This girl was talking about, it was from the man's perspective. He was talking about how he used to kind of be not a good boyfriend. And he had grew up in a really bad home, and when things would get bad in his relationship, he would go on defense. And he was like, I started dating this woman, and she, every time I would get mad, or every time I would get angry, every time I'd call her out of her name or start to go off on her, she would just look at me and be like, let it out. She wouldn't react. She wouldn't carry on with me. She wouldn't even get emotional because she knew it wasn't her, it was me. And it was like, it completely changed my life. And I think in a sense, that's unconditional love. Now we all have to, like, you can love somebody unconditionally, doesn't mean that you need to run yourself over by them by any means.
Right,
we all
right.
have to have our barriers and put ourselves first. But to sit back and recognize that it's like, this has nothing to do with me. This all has to do with you, and you don't know how to handle it. Just being there in any sense like that, and knowing that you can love somebody unconditionally and just be in that space with them, without having to be attached to their crap, is so powerful, I think, too. And I think that having the power to do that helps other people heal too, because it gives them, if they choose to move forward with it, if they choose to grow and put in the effort, it gives them the space to start to do that.
So that story with the two churches, you're saying that they basically set aside their differences and united for a greater purpose.
Exactly.
I've talked about it before with Tyler, actually. I was in a passionate conversation, which I do, and for whatever reason, my poor husband's always like there when I'm ready to talk about something passionately. So he usually just sits there and listens. But I mentioned how in our area there are 30 plus churches in a 10-mile radius. Yeah. And I said there should be no homelessness.
No.
There should be no issues within this community, because if these churches actually band together under the umbrella of a cause, like, they could make significant waves of change. And it's the same issue that I see in history in general. And I've been in college now for a little bit over a year, actually almost 2 years. And one of the things that I have been studying, and it's kind of like a through thread, I don't know why it just keeps coming up in my classes, but like civil rights movement and the women's rights movement. And one of the big issues that I've seen is that there are very, very few connecting threads between the two. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys know this or recognize this, because it took me a minute to realize that both of these issues have been going on at the same exact
during the same time frames.
Mm-hmm. So both are fighting for liberation, for that, overcoming of oppression, but very, very rarely are they actually working together to do that and to support each other through that. And I get that part of it was a racial mindset back in the day and all that jazz, but can you imagine what would have happened if they actually did unite?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's just like now where everybody is in such a rat race, that it's not about living, it's about surviving and where you're going to get the next dollar from and who's going to get a promotion and
me, I.
We don't have, people aren't living in their purpose.
No, they aren't.
That's a good way of saying that, Ash. Yeah.
I think so much too, people aren't living in themselves. Like, it's all, what can I look like? Who do I want to look like? So much is to impress people. Mm-hmm. And you think by impressing people, you're impressing yourself, but really it's just a shallow ego boost. And it sucks so much, because I feel like so many people are stuck in that. But what's kind of ironic, so you're talking about in our area, well, it was 11 churches, because 3 of them are gone now. So of those 11 that created that medical system, 8 of them are left, and they're in our area, and they're the ones that came together for that. So to look over a century later and see that they came together then for that, where are we now? What are we doing? And why are we not doing certain things?
Well, it's just like, if you look back at like other things, like, people fighting and, going to like, where they go to like fight for things that they believe in. We don't really do that anymore.
It's true.
We just sit.
Yeah. We do. We just sit and we watch other people do it.
So we've become complacent.
Yeah.
And followers.
I mean, and that's where we have, if we go back to the cycle of liberation, and I brought it up a couple of times, but Bobby Harrow mentions that you can join the cycle of liberation at any point in time, but when you are just observing, you're not a part of it. Mm-mm. You're not a part of the solution.
You're watching the parade go by.
Yeah.
Reminds me, I said I've been on a Brene Brown kick, but it just immediately was like, have you guys heard the part about being in the arena?
Yes.
Okay, so like they talk about shame and all that, and like, the people in the crowd, but she made a statement, something to the effect of, if you're not in the arena, if you're not the one that's afraid to lose or fail, get bloody, be beaten and all that, I don't want your opinion. And that's very much kind of where I'm standing right now. Is I've sat in the back and observed a lot in my teens and early 20s, and now it's mapping how to do certain things, but
It's okay. It's okay. Being in the arena is important. That's how we
yes.
create
And
change.
just- yeah. Oh, another thing. I was thinking about this and thinking about that at the same time, and it made my brain go not braining. But no, I was so proud the other day. It's such a random thing and kind of off topic, but we talk about people coming together and fighting and all that. It's like all these moms. So it's like, you know, over in other countries, we don't have the same like safety to our food. They put so much crap in our food, and all these moms were on the corporate grass, like in front of the building at Fruit Loops, Kellogg's.
Yes, I saw that.
And they were all protesting because
Yes.
of all that stuff. And I'm like, gosh, like we've known about this for over a decade, and finally people are starting to come together more to fight that stuff.
That's because the representative, she got up and said, this box is from Canada.
Yeah.
And she was talking about all the natural fruit
yes.
that it contained. And this box is from the United States, and it had all these chemicals in it.
Yep.
And it's like, this company is promoting making our children sick.
Yep.
You know, yeah,
100%.
yeah, I saw that because
I
she was
hope that
inviting
they go
people to
after
come.
other people too.
Oh, there's so
I
many.
think so too.
I think we're honestly, guys, we're in this a big time frame of change and liberation
Oh, yeah.
within our world, and I think the question is, are we going to take the step to be able to create the change? And here today we're talking about community minus religion,
Right.
so that needs to change.
Yeah.
That needs to change. That thought process of we have to be Christians, especially in the United States, in order to be a part of a community or whatever the case may be.
If you're not a Christian, then you're not right. Then you're
Right.
not. Then you're not accepted. You're not doing what is required. You're not in the proper mindset. If you're not good, you're evil.
Which there's a whole lot going on politically
Yes.
as well,
Yes.
which I don't even want to tap
No.
into in here. But I'm just saying, like, there's a need for this change.
Yes.
There's a need for this shift of perspective.
And
And
I think we are slowly creating an awareness as it as well. We're creating an awareness that we're holding a space of safety and love, but we're holding this space of presence in the community, and we're saying we're here. We're here, and I just feel like this space is beginning to just increase. It's almost like when you watch a movie and there's like a protective bubble over somebody, whether they have like superpowers or whatever, and you see the bubble go like this and it grows, and where their protection, covers everybody that they love or everybody that they care about around them. And I feel like that's what it as well is in the process of doing. And the more we put it out there and say, hey, we're here for you. We are here for anyone who needs to be here. We're here for anyone who needs us. That bubble, that protective cover, that space, we're holding space, it is increasing in the community. And we're saying we're here.
Yep. That's I think unconditional love all the time, not just in a tragedy or when something strikes. Like we need it all the time. We need
Yes.
community all the time.
All the time, 24/7. Yeah.
I think in a sense it's probably a shocking or not necessarily a trigger for people, but like for people that don't know what that's like I was saying, for me in the beginning, having that level of comfortability was almost terrifying because I'd never had that. Once you get into it, you don't ever want to get away from it. But I think especially a lot of people that aren't into particular things, that there's a group out there for them or aren't into religion, it's really hard to know that exists. And there isn't much of it that does exist. And I think that's one reason why we're so needed, but also there needs to be more of us
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes, everywhere.
So I think when you open up your heart to unconditional love for yourself, you're able to open it up to others, and it's not scary. It's not.
Mm-mm.
It's easy.
I thought about it the other day when you were talking about that, Ashley, because sometimes when you say, you know, how can I make a difference? Because there are some days, I'll be perfectly honest with you, there's some days that I don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's any way that I could possibly make a difference.
Right.
But then I feel like Spirit showed me one day that if I can turn around and positively impact one person, and then they turn around and they positively impact one person, and then that goes on and on and on, then that one positive impact that I had can hopefully have a beautiful trickle effect.
Mm-hmm.
And before you know it, hundreds, thousands of people somewhere down the line, lives are being changed
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
just through simple things like love and acceptance.
And it is simple. I think
It is
we
simple.
overcomplicate it an awful lot.
I think
within
we
our-
overcomplicate it with our
ourselves.
whole life, just,
Yeah.
you know, in day-to-day living.
But we are taught the expectations, and we are taught the restrictions on those things, which isn't unconditional love, really, is it?
Mm-mm. No, it isn't.
And I think that that's part of the issue as well, is like people are not sure what that actually looks like,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Anything else to add to the conversation, guys? No?
I'm sure I could keep going.
I feel the same way, and every time we get together, it's always a beautiful conversation. I know
Yes.
we touched on many different thoughts here today,
Here.
but I kind of want to leave everybody with the thought process of taking that baby step.
Mm-hmm.
Taking that baby step out there to trying community without religion. If you are somebody who has left the church, if you are somebody who, you know, doesn't believe in anything like that, and you're not sure where you belong, like, find a group of people to plug into, whether it's with us online or in person, or whether it's, you know, a completely different group. I know that there's all kinds.
Yes.
There's another group that was out of LA, and I can't remember the name of their organization, but I will try to find it and link it somehow here. But they have about 66 locations worldwide now. They are a group of people who meet like a Sunday service kind of thing for church, but they are all made up of like agnostic and atheist individuals who, you know, they don't talk about God or religion or spirituality or anything like that. So that might be for somebody out there if that's what they need, you know. So yeah. All right, guys. Until next time.